Anonymous taxi.
Mhm.
Oh, one of those
Waymo.
Wazo things. Yeah,
Waymo.
Waymos. Yeah.
It's the craziest experience I've ever had.
You like skid in and select your temperature and
Anonymous
radio
taxi.
station.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one of those Wazo things. Yeah,
Waymo.
Waymos.
Yeah, yeah, we're live. We're live. All right. Good evening. Let me hit this record button. Now we are live. We welcome everybody back. We took a little while off, grand sessions and a whole bunch of other stuff. But this week I'll start us off with a disclaimer. Again, we're going to talk about some things today, mostly how masonry is related to the Bible, and then we're going to get into some other stuff, another candid conversation at the end. Our views are just that, our views. They in no way, or shape, or form have any bearing on what our Grand Lodges, um, the thoughts or vernacular are, would be. These are just our views and just three brothers having candid conversations. So, you guys have anything else to add to that before we?
No, I think that's good. My views.
Caveat done.
Check and check.
Hmm.
Done and done, huh? All
Yeah.
right,
Sir.
man. Y'all ready for this?
Let's
Yeah,
get it.
let's do it.
Let's see what the evil genius has. So I don't even call myself a genius. I'm special.
Just evil.
I'm special. I am special. And that is not a compliment.
There we go.
All right. So today we are going to talk about how masonry is related to the Bible, the volume Sacred Law. Now it's funny, I chose these three pictures, and it's really hilarious. If you look at the pictures, the one to your right, you will notice a dusty Bible. And funny enough that some of our Bibles actually look like this on our tables. Funny, candid, not candid, however you want to look at it. I just thought that picture was so true. So anyway,
Did you take a picture of my Bible in my house?
no, I did not take a picture of
Okay.
the Bible in your house. No, but I'm sure that brothers won't admit it, but some of their Bibles look like this. And then the center picture is even more funny because in masonry we always desire more light, and that volume sacred law being opened up, eluding or emitting light into the air. It's just a good look for us and a good look for the Bible. Now, as we just talk about the Creator, right? The Creator, the supreme architect of the universe, right? It is the supreme architect of the universe. Hence, again, is our creator. He has many names. And as we think about the many names that he carries and the worship, there's 72 names that are connected to the Most High God, right? God says that I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, right? He is the epitome of all things. Now, just a little bit, right? We can talk about there's many charges. There are a lot of charges in masonry, right? And as we think about our charge, there's some key things here to think about. Regard the Holy Scriptures as a great light of your profession. They're an unerring standard of truth and justice, and you're to regulate your life and action by the divine precepts therein contained. That's deep.
Yep.
You gotta, if you're taking these words to heart, you got to regulate your life and actions by these divine precepts therein contained. And then it goes on to say, no institution was ever raised on better principles. Then we're talking about the Holy Bible. No institution was raised on better principles. The Bible is the cornerstone. So the cornerstone is that first building, that first block in the building. That's just profound. So I had to take that and capture that piece as we were talking biblically. Now, first steps. The ministry, there's a bunch of steps, 33 steps, different size. We will talk symbolic laws, 33 steps, right? But you got to take step one before you get to step 33. And in step one, we can think about the Most High in Genesis 1 and 1 talks about the beginning. And then we go on to talk about in Masonry, and that first step in the charge to that we talk to the candidates about and receives and speaks specifically the divine precepts therein contained. Again, that being said, the unerring standards of truth and justice. Masonry, it said in Masonry that we take good men and make them better men. But how? I just we'll ponder that question after this, but
Yeah.
how? Like if we take good men and make them better men, how do we do it? And then are we giving brothers the tools to make these men better men? What about the divine precepts that are contained? Are we showing them that? Just food for thought. Now, the 25 ancient landmarks for whatever reason don't get talked about in Masonry. I don't know why. I'm confused because they're the hallmark of Masonry. As we go back to Anderson's Constitution, the Book of Law, we it talks about the 25 ancient landmarks. But today, for this specific lecture, we'll just talk about the 21st. And everybody on this call and all our viewers can read. So let me give you the TED Talk on this. The TED Talk is this landmark thereby or therefore requires the Book of Law a religious code of some kind, purporting to be an exemplar of the revealed will of God, of the Most High God, shall form an essential part of the furniture of every lodge. So the 21st landmark essentially, as we paraphrase that, says that this will be the hallmark, right? This is the furnishings of every lodge. You have to have the Bible to open your lodge. You can't do anything. You can't open. You can't close. You can't do degree work. You can't do anything without the Holy Bible being open. Now, the Masonic altar, there's many different Masonic altars throughout Masonry. Every lodge, every Grand Lodge, every subordinate lodge has a different Masonic altar. Right? The Masonic altar, it holds the Bible, but in some jurisdictions and some Grand Lodges, it holds several books. And those depending on the personal religion. So as we talk about that 21st landmark, the 21st landmark says that if somebody has a different religion, they can have their book of law to take their obligation. That's kind of some of the synopsis of the 21st landmark. But if we think about in a lodge and some circumambulations, we're going around just like the sun, right? The revolutions,
Yeah.
the sun around the earth, around that altar. So we're circling around that light. What do we most desire? More light. And as we think about Masonic charity, so charity does what? Charity extends beyond the grave, right? And we think about some of the origins in that biblically come from Luke 10:25-37. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came into saying, Master, would that thou shouldest do for us whatsoever we shall desire. And he said unto them, What would ye that I do for you? Said unto him, Grant us that we may sit. Grant us that we may sit at the right hand. We always talk biblically about sitting at the right hand of the Most High God, right? And then in His glory. So it is powerful as we think about Masonic charity. It really stemming from this book of Luke and sitting to be able to sit when it's all said and done at the right hand of the Most High God. That's a hell of a thought. Faith, hope, and charity, right? Faith is the substance of things not seen, right? The evidence of things not seen. It's about bringing transformation to life. Additionally, you learn how to get past your rough ashes because we're all rough ashes. We were just talking about this before we came on live, right? Our ashes is always rough. We're always trying to use those working tools to break off the superfluous corners of that rough stone to better fit that builder's use. Then lastly, we try to live this committed life both by faith and purpose. This biblical meaning of faith, we aspire to get to this perfect ashlar, right? But in hope, in Psalms 119:81, my soul longs for salvation, hope. I'm praying for something good to happen. I hope my soul longs for salvation. And in the Corinthians 3:12-14, therefore, since we have such hope, we are very bold. Corinthians in the book and Paul the prophet, right? he was just so profound in Corinthians, in the book of Corinthians. He says, therefore, since we have such hope, we are very bold. We're bold in our faith. Let us be bold in our conviction and our faith. And again, how is masonry related to the Bible, you ask? Faith, hope, and charity. That charity extends beyond the grave. Right? Talk about some biblical characters. Now, brothers are gonna read this and they're looking at this right now. They're like,
Yep.
man, bro, is high. Those aren't biblical characters. Those are Masonic characters. Wrong. These are all biblical characters. King Solomon, Hiram Abiff, Hiram of Tyre, Tubal Cain, St. John the Baptist, St. John the Evangelist, Jacob's Ladder, all biblical characters. Not Masonic characters, biblical characters. Because if you trace their lineage through the Bible, they are talked about specifically and extensively in the Bible. And then some of the symbols, the Ark of Covenant, talk about the Holy of Holies, right? The Sanctum Sanctorum. Ark of Covenant was stored there. The Mosaic pavement, Jacob's ladder, the lambskin apron, King Solomon's temple, and others. All Masonic temples, or symbols, excuse me, but biblically backed. Now, some of the verses, we were kind of talking about some of these. There's some back and forth about why were these chosen. Can't answer that, but I can tell you that since they were chosen, we could think about them like this. The three verses within our 3 degrees, entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master masons are direct quotes from the Bible. Genesis 1, Matthew 7, Amos 7, and Ecclesiastes 12. Amos, like who was Amos, right? He flourished in the 8th century.
He's looking at Amos.
Yeah, I found him in the background. I was looking at him, yeah.
There he is.
No, my bad. I apologize. So who was Amos? Amos flourished in the 8th century. He was a Hebrew prophet and had a biblical name for him, a Bible verse named after him, a book. He accurately foretold the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel, and although he did not specify Assyria as the cause, and as a prophet of doom, anticipated later the Old Testament prophet. So Amos was pretty powerful. He wasn't, I had to make some changes. He wasn't the first Hebrew prophet, but he was a Hebrew prophet, that's for sure. So this Amos 7 and 7 talks about a plumb line. And then what was a plumb line, right? Really, a plumb line was a unit of measurement. But a plumb line was also used, if you look at the book of Amos, as a tool of torture or correction. We'll just say correction to be politically correct. A plumb line is a weight suspended from a string used as a vertical reference. As we think about the junior warden station and his jewel and that vertical reference, right? That erectitude of life. The plumb line was utilized for that same thing to look at how do we erect this building vertically, perfectly. In other words, succinctly. All right, has a lot to do with the righteousness of the living within God's neighborhood. So, how do we act? How do Masons act? By the plumb. Where have you heard that before? This is a hotbed. This right here, because trying to move myself out of the way as you guys can see. The Bible genealogy. Now, we talk about it extensively. We just talked about it this past Sunday. 1300 to 165 BC, the first Hebrew text was set down on papyrus and leather scrolls. Think about that, Hebrew text. Hebrew. We'll talk about the Septuagint here in a couple slides from now, but 250 to 50 BC, the Septuagint, the first translation from Hebrew to Greek. And then 7th through 9th centuries, in AD texts, Masorettes, Jewish scholars, 6th through 10th centuries, right? In the 7th century was crazy because we started to get some weird stuff happening with the Bible. Then 400 AD, St. Jerome's Vulgate, the Latin translation, and the Catholic Standard. And then so on and so forth till we get down to about 1582. The Bible was again translated, the Douay Bible. This was a Latin translation of the Bible. And then the Bible of 1611, the King James Version, was the first authorized, real authorized translation. And this King James, that today that 1611 Bible has all of the books in its entirety. And as we discussed before, the Septuagint, what it really is just the oldest Greek conversion or the oldest Greek version of the Old Testament, traditionally said to have been translated 72 times. And at the beginning, we talk about 72 being the number of names of the Most High God, which is depicted on the left as his symbol and on the right as a breakdown in the equilateral triangle, right? But we also talk about the request of the Ptolemy, right? Most scholars believe that only the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, was completed in the early part of the 3rd century BC. And the remaining books are translated in the following 2 centuries. We talk about the number 8. I just kind of wanted to throw this in just as a bonus, if you will. In Masonry, we talk about 3, 5, 7, and 9. We don't talk a lot about 8, but if we look at the number 8, the number 8 signifies resurrection and regeneration. And basically, we look at the number 8, we break it down 7 plus 1, 1 being us, and 7 being, we talk about the 7 spirits of God, 7 churches, right? After 7, which itself signifies an end. So the end plus adding us, building our spiritual and ornamental edifice, it's a beginning. So the number 8 should signify us or should represent us as we are entered apprentice, getting raised into masonry, coming into masonry. That beginning, that resurrection. We're resurrecting our old life and going into this new life.
That's interesting.
Philippians itself, 2:10 through 11, right? The name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, right? Every tongue shall confess, and those heavens and the heavens, the earth, and under the earth, right? This is a powerful verse, and it's tough, right? Every knee shall bow, right? To bow, and as we think about bowing, we kneel at the altar. We are submissive as we're thinking about the book of Philippians at the altar. We're confessing, we're purging ourselves of what we did, and we're trying to focus on going forward and taking those good men and being better men.
Becoming humble.
Very humble, right? And that is it.
Trey, do you have any questions?
Trey better not have no questions, man. Trey, you got
No.
questions?
I do not have any questions, sir.
All right. What's the thoughts?
My first thought, watching that and really reading it, and, those are mostly things that I've heard before, but King James has a very interesting connection to Freemasonry. And around that time that King James version came out, that's really when you saw organized Freemasonry really take hold. He was very interested in architecture and building these beautiful edifices. And I don't know if you guys have heard have you heard the Shaw statutes?
Yeah, briefly.
William Shaw was his master of works. So he's the guy that was appointed by King James to basically build all these beautiful buildings in the country. And he was really the first one to get with the ancient stonemasons and really organize them in a manner in which closely resembles what we got today. They had a constitution, they elected officers, and they became very organized, started keeping minutes, and really keeping track of what they did in a lodge. But I think it's very interesting that, and I need to do a little bit more research on King James, but there is a lot of Masonic connection there. And I'm trying to think of the book that I read all that stuff in, but that definitely
a lot of it came from Born in Blood.
Yeah, it did. A lot of it did. But they really talk about the Shaw statutes, and that really being the first evidence of really organized Freemasonry that resembles what we got today. So that was my first thought. The second one with the number 8, I love the numbers. How you guys, I don't expect you to answer this. Actually, you shouldn't answer this, but think about how many it takes to open a lodge of entered apprentices, and then you add the person who's being initiated. Like there's a lot of things that, and I just kind of like, wow, that math adds up. There's a lot of cool, and maybe it's true, maybe it's a coincidence, I don't know, but there's a lot of things with those particular numbers that you could add up, and they have a connection to Freemasonry.
And it's a resurgence of regeneration, and all those things are all regeneration. Because if you think about the different sectors, and we'll just call it sectors, different sectors of masonry, and as you go through those different sections or sectors, there's a regeneration each time.
Yeah. My third thought was, there's a lot to talk about in regards to the biblical character Hiram Abiff. I think it would be really interesting. The third degree is one of our newer degrees of the three. And, there's a lot of interesting stuff to read about, what that third degree kind of looked like prior to the Hiram Abiff legend kind of coming to toe. I would just, man, what I wouldn't do to just be in a room, be a fly on the wall when these guys kind of got together and be like, all right, well, we need to have a more profound third degree. And they're like, they went to the Bible and they found this guy. I mean, it's really genius, how they did this stuff. And the amount of thought that it went into, in just, it's very interesting how this all ties into the Bible. And man, it's really cool stuff. Just the foresight and the fact that we're still have these rituals that remain relatively unchanged hundreds of years later. It really is a testament to how intelligent these guys were, in that time, and how deep of thinkers they really were. And man, really cool stuff.
I often wonder why the Bible, right? And I think that it's something that we should acknowledge, and that there's obviously clearly a sacred, right?
Sure.
But out of all of these other things that are out there, all of these other books and things that are out there, but why is it Hiram Abiff, King Solomon, those individuals from the Bible? I think from a spiritual perspective, we should evaluate that, and because we know that there will be things that try to detract from the truth, and kind of, I guess, murky the waters. But it's important to read, and it's important to value it for itself. Like we were talking a little bit earlier about not Robert's rules, but we are talking about the landmarks, and how important they are. I'm still trying to figure this out. And I'll say it. Who is Mackie, right? And like, what makes him the authority to be able to put all of these things together to say that these are the 25 landmarks, right? I struggle to believe,
and they can't be changed.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but a lot of that though, most of that wasn't Mackey, and although Dr. Albert Mackey, right, will give him his educational credence, we won't call him an authority. And let's just be honest. Let's just be real. We're not gonna call him authority, right? It's like we are kind of talking earlier before we got on the air about I guess clicks. So it was a click. It was cliquish then where he became this authority, but there was nothing objective making him the authority.
Yeah. I agree. I just wonder, all right, well, if that's not the authority, right? That we're not, ostensibly, like living by or operating by, then what is, right? And then why can't we change the landmarks? And is there credence to change the landmarks, right? Because they were written in a way in which they should not, right? But I just don't understand, like, how are you going to make up something, that I won't say make up. You're going to gather information and develop this thing that is going to be basically your standard operating procedure, but you're going to reference things that are older than this thing, right?
Right.
We'll call it the Bible,
Mhm.
right? And or whatever you want to call whatever you want to call it. But then we're going to reference this thing, and they're the spirit of the book of law isn't one that is so it is a book of law. It is conforming. I just don't see how Mackie, like I still struggle with the authority. Why do we have these 25 ancient landmarks? What defines it as ancient? Because ancient to me isn't when it was written, when the 20,
1700s.
yeah,
Mhm.
isn't the 1700s. That's not ancient to me. So it's relative. So I'm curious as to,
Relative as so we think about Anderson's Book of Constitution,
mhm.
1723. The United Grand Lodge of English was established 1717. So that being the basis of ancient, but masonry we know existed before then,
Yep.
Exactly.
right?
And
But
mhm,
scholars base it on when the United Grand Lodge of England was stood up.
I got
So
it.
I think it all
Yeah,
comes down to legitimacy, like
Yeah.
if a Grand Lodge wanted to deviate from the ancient landmarks, right?
Hmm.
It comes down to recognition,
Yeah.
and they would be deemed not a recognized body, which
yeah,
you don't want to be that, right? So I agree with you to a point. Like, and I think as these things continuously get older, that's going to make it more and more difficult to change, right? Because now it has become more ancient, right? And I think everybody's scared to be the first one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nobody wants to be the first one.
Well,
It's kind of the kiss of death.
but it's kind of interesting, right? Because I know I'm not the smartest man in the room, but I'm like, it's clear to me, and maybe it's like, you know, some people are just okay with, the not the status quo, but being told, right? Instead
Sure.
of studying and thinking about things, from a challenging. I want to challenge the status quo to make sure that I fully understand what you're telling me, right? What you're telling me, what you're asking me to believe. I don't know. Did I hit that thumbs up?
You did.
Yeah,
You gave yourself a thumbs up. That
I
was
gave it
dope.
for you. You're
Yeah,
good. Oh, you're gonna
There we
get a
go.
whole bunch of them
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I forgot where I was going with that, but
Well,
yeah, I think
we'll
it's
help you
important to
here.
challenge it.
We'll help you
Yeah.
take off. Go ahead. All right,
Yeah.
take back off again.
But yeah, I think this whole thing, man, of masonry is interesting. I think it's if anything, it's forced me to um really study more in the word, um and really to be able to defend, right? To defend the faith from the sense of, not letting it be abused for the benefit of something that is not within that spirit, right? Because it does bother me when I hear the Bible or misinterpreted, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of us, even more so now, I just picked up this one book because I'm like, I really want to learn how to interpret, right? So picked up this textbook called that's about biblical interpretations, and one of the things I realized in it is like there's a few things before you even read in scripture, or anything you need to ask yourself, right? Any kind of literature, right? Who wrote it? What were the times in which they wrote it? Who were they talking to, right? And then what were the norms, the culture norms in that time, right? In order to get a full context of what it is, for example, Paul is saying to the Church of Corinth or Philippi, you have to put yourself there before mentally, but also at the same time, you can't come in with any kind of presuppositions, right? And a lot of times, because we know the full story, we know what Revelation, what happens in Revelations, right? Because we read the book, we apply this the our interpretations of the New Testament to the Old Testament, or you know what I'm saying, and that's actually backwards. And I just find it interesting in these stories that are tied to, masonry, um, how without the full context, some things can be lost.
Hmm. I just think of, you talk about the context and when it was written and who was it written to. Let me offer this though, is that the Bible's still very relevant today.
Oh yeah,
So we think about when it was written, and we talk about 1300 to 165, the original Bible, and then this Bible 1611, and then today, right, in the 21st century, we are now still utilizing those principles. And then in Freemasonry, they're still captive and they're still alive. And we can't even move without the aid of the Bible. So yes, your context, your comments were spot on about, yeah, who was it written to? Like how was it written, right? We want to know the deeper the meaning behind the meaning. But then we just have to take a step back and look at it like, man, well, whoever it was written to is still relevant today.
yeah, for sure. There's that lesson to be gained and to be understood in the story, which is why someone thought it was important enough, right, being led to document this for us to to tell them. I mean, Jesus, most of the work or the words in the Bible as it relates to Jesus, what he said, right, when he's teaching, done in parables. So even then, context of the context, so the context of the biblical times, and then of the context of what he's speaking to in his parables, there's layers to it. And I think a lot of times we take things literally, without really understanding what it really means. And by literally, I mean like we take it literally, but without understanding what it literally meant then, and we're gleaning a completely different um, story from it. So
Yeah, but
I think it's interesting.
isn't it funny? And I know Justin can definitely relate to this. The Bible kind of, if you think about the how we take it, right? How three people can read it and come up with three different things. Isn't it like a military SOP?
Mm.
It's the same thing, right? The shells and shoulds.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
we read those, right, we all read it differently.
Yeah.
I read it, I interpret it like this. Well, I interpret it like this. Well, what was the intent? We
Yeah.
don't know who wrote the SOP, right? We don't know who wrote whatever, right?
Yeah.
This and that. And who were they talking to? Shells and shoulds are gray.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's.
What,
I want to shift gears. We
talk
can
about
have one more
leadership.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely want to talk about leadership today. I think it's just a hotbed topic, but just as first start off, and I'm gonna ask a question. Just throw the grenade out there, right? What do you guys think about the culture in the organization? The culture in any organization, whether it be masonry, whether it be business, politics, whatever. What is the effect of the culture in an organization? How does
Mm.
it affect the organization?
I mean, culture ultimately influences all aspects of business, right? Or
Mhm.
all aspects of any kind of organization, depending on if you're, providing a product or a service. So if we're looking at it from that lens, culture, when we're talking about ethical culture at that or unethical culture,
Good
there's
culture and good, just make it good culture and bad culture, right? We
okay.
just want to make it
Good.
keep it black and
Okay,
white.
good culture and bad culture. There's toxic culture in the sense of how individuals want to correspond and communicate both professionally and informally, right? So
Mhm.
how we communicate, and then again, good culture, having a good onboarding process, a good initiation process, right?
Mhm.
That in what is it? That brings in new guys to the organization in order to allow them to be exposed to cultural norms through individuals who they're either paired for or they're learned because there's learned behaviors
Oh yeah.
that are gathered during how you interact with people, and then there's learned behaviors or expected behaviors based off of what are the organizational's values, right? What is the organization's values, and do your values align with that? So to answer the question, I think culture. We all agree that culture can, greatly impact an organization for good and for bad. And it's an ebb and flow, right? Of good culture and bad culture versus the different types of individuals you have at a particular time, which in my opinion is why it's good to have change. Maybe not frequently, but often. So,
Yeah, I definitely experienced those ebbs and flows in the military. And I think that's just because guys come in and out of your unit and they have different leadership skills and experience and, and abilities and that comes and goes. I'll be honest with you, where I work at now, it's been discussed earlier on the podcast. So go check, I think, episode 1 out. You can figure out where I work, but the culture's great. And they really go out of their way to recognize employees when they go above and beyond. I think that's huge. I think that's huge in organization. And I think that's huge in a Masonic lodge. I think that, when you got a guy, no matter how menial the task was, he goes above and beyond of what's expected. It doesn't need to be a bonus, it doesn't necessarily need to be a plaque, but just, that recognition in public really makes a huge difference. That's big for me. Competence. If you're a leader and you are competent, that makes a big difference, and you need to know what you're talking about. And I think that people are intelligent no matter what level they're at in the organization. They're intelligent enough to know whether you know what you're talking about or not. And I'm very fortunate to work for people who know what they're talking about. They are experts in this thing that in this organization we work at, and no matter how busy they are, they always find the time to stop if you have a question or just to see how you're doing. It may be in an elevator, it might be on a Zoom call, like, hey, how are things going? Is there anything I could do for you? There's a lot of crossover between working in an organization and a Masonic lodge. And I think that we can really, if you look at the commonalities of what a good organization looks like, I guarantee you're going to find the same commonalities in a Masonic lodge as well. There's a lot of crossover. There's a ton of crossover and people that are, some people are successful at both.
No, I agree, but we talk about that culture, but it's the leader who drives that culture. Like in my real life, right? Not in my Masonic superhero cape life. I'm a program manager. And so I have 44 direct reports. And even this morning, I try at least 2 to 3 days a week, if not more, to get in front of all of our technicians. This morning I told them, I said, talk is cheap, action actually cost. And then I went on to expound and I said that you guys' their actions have spoke volumes and they paid it forward. And I also told them a few weeks back, I told them about the four laws of combat, right? Cover and move, right? Keep it simple, prioritize and execute, and they decentralized command. And I went down to break down all of those things. The point being, we created a monthly employee of the month, a local, like we made it up, made a little thing up,
Sure,
put it on paper. But every quarter after we get 3 of them, we take them, I treat them all to lunch. And it's just a simple lunch. We go wherever they want to go. We break bread and we have this conversation. What that's done is just opened everything up. We've done team building, we've done bowling, we've done team building events. So that creates that culture of, hey, I can trust my boss, I can trust my leader, and he has his best interest at heart. And I always tell them from day one, I told them their failures are theirs, their failures are mine, excuse me, and their successes are theirs. Right. So they keep their successes, whatever they do, they succeed on their own. But as a leader, I take all his failures and I shoulder those, and that's my responsibility.
How
So
much do you find out when you have these kind of off-site? Like how much do you
tons,
actually learn about, right?
tons,
That's
tons. Like it
important.
is it is huge. And even in masonry, I think if we did that more, right, outside of the lodge, because where I came from, we did masonry on an island. Lived in Japan for 3 years, did masonry there, but outside the lodge, I knew this brother's family. He knew my family. Every day, every weekend, there was something. We did something. And so it made us stronger. And to this day, those bonds are still there.
Right.
Right. There's a couple brothers probably watching streaming now that are my line brothers, my cable toes. And that was 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you think that we've lost to a certain extent that, like, I feel at times, and I have felt at times, that we focus so much on stuff other than that, right? We focus on community service and fundraising and so much of this other stuff that it almost felt like I was in a service organization. Don't get me wrong, that stuff is important. I think that is important for us to give back to our community in a positive way. Don't get me
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
But we need to take the time to get to know each other, right? And you can't get if you're working either in the lodge or outside the lodge, like, you really don't have the opportunity to get to know. And that's why I'm so close with Trey and like our other cables. We spent time, we made it a priority to spend time doing stuff other than Masonic stuff. And we're thicker than thieves still. And I would assume that we will continue to be so, not because of the stuff we did in the lodge or stuff we did for a community service, is because we took the time and the effort to get to know each other on a personal level. He knows my wife. He knows my kid. My kid still asks for Trey. Where's Trey at? He still
My
asks for
man.
Trey. Like, where's Trey at?
Yeah.
And he has made, not to make it a sappy moment, but like that impact transcended me, and reverberated into my family, and that is what this is about.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
No,
You get my
it's,
point.
it's all good, man.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I think that in today's society, in today's world, we live in a world of just instant, instant gratification, instant access to
Microwave.
information.
It's a
Yeah, right,
microwave.
Yeah.
microwave. It is. And more so too, we've become really busy, right? We're able to do more because our calendars can get stacked. We can, we can we can deconflict time space with the family and all this other stuff. And we just forget to take a pause. And I'm really kind of reflecting and talking to myself here, right? And how I think this, yeah, right. And how I think this relates to topic at hand with leadership and everything is that at times it's hard for us to take a pause, right? It's hard for us to take a pause and to deliberately be present. And that is a commitment to ourselves just to be present in a particular thing. Doesn't necessarily have to be Masonic, but just in something, whether it be with your family or work or just for yourself. And I think that it's really challenging. And that's one of the reasons that we don't get a lot of brothers who get together, a lot, is because life is busy. California is a busy place, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
it's everything's here, there. You got to go 15 miles up the road that takes you an hour to get there, or vice versa. And it's challenging, right? And I'm not making excuses. I'm just making an observation of what I think is a contributor to, our we haven't been not getting together too often to create these bonds. You have to be deliberate. I think that we for us, for Justin and I, and even for Raul and his cables, right?
Yeah.
You went through something together, right? That really connected you. You don't have that at a greater scale when you're talking about all the individuals at the lodge. It just comes through time and projects and working on different things, right? And you find out, who lives close, and this, that, and the other. So I don't think we should fault brothers. I think we should observe it. I think we should look at ways to be better at it. I think even, like we're doing now, just bringing a Zoom together and having conversations while you're watching a football game and whatnot. It's a way that we live in such a connected world that there's really not a reason why not to. But I think it's just a recognition first. We got to recognize it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always blessed that we were able to kind of put our wits together and come up with this platform to give up to bring it back to the forefront because
Yeah.
it's getting lost, right? It's as time goes on, Justin was right. It kind of turns into a service organization where there's no real, we say brotherhood, right? There's no the brotherhood starts to get watered down,
Yeah.
and then as leaders, we got to look at that like it's a problem, right? There's a problem because if you think about the attrition, right? As I was sitting in the Grand Lodge this past weekend or whatever it was, and the numbers were great, but I also focused in on the attrition. All right. And what was the cause of those numbers that attrited it? Those brothers not paying the dues. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why did they not pay dues? They didn't just stop paying dues. It was, and 9 times out of 10, it's not financial. So again, what's the why?
So without going into too much detail, I am
Yeah.
intimately aware of the retention issues in the Grand Lodge that I work for.
Mm,
And what I will tell you is I conducted a 4-month study into this. And what did I do? Everybody that popped up on the intent to suspend list, I gave them a call. I
mhm.
called them on the phone. And I would say about 85% of them, their response was, "You're the first Mason who's called me in several years."
There it is.
Right. And it's some lodges, and I'm not defending all of them, but some lodges have 800, 1,000 guys on their rolls. You cannot expect for an officer line to be able to intentionally keep in touch with every brother in the lodge. Like it's not possible.
Yeah.
Other varying reasons, um, you know, I think we lose a lot of guys around. It's a little bit different, I think, in y'all's jurisdiction, but
Mhm.
where it's kind of like you will get your first, second, and third degree. But in other jurisdictions, it's kind of you do it as you do it, right? There's not a
Mhm.
timetable. You're not waiting on anybody else. Like you go in there individually and you do it on your own. And when you're ready, and you do that. Guys fizzle out. So you got a lot of guys that have been entered apprentices for 10 years, fellow crafts for 15 years. They
Right.
haven't gotten the same experience. You know what I mean? They haven't gotten all of it. So I think that they think in their mind that they didn't receive the Masonic experience that they were hoping to get. But in reality, they just didn't get all the way to the finish line. So how do we get those guys to the finish line, right? Is kind of a question that we're trying to figure out right now. But you're 100% right. It's not most of the time it's not a monetary issue. It's not a I can't pay my $100 this year. Sorry, guys. Because a Mason who is in financial distress, a simple conversation will be able to fix all of that. Like if Raul or Trey, if you were the master of my lodge and be like, look, guys, I just lost my job. I'm putting my kid through college. I can't afford that. This is an expense that I can't afford. 99.99% of masters out there can be like, you know what, brother, thanks for coming forward. We're going to go ahead and remit your dues this year. Don't worry about it. Or my cable is probably going to pick me up. Like if I called Trey, I'd be like, hey, dog, can't do it. Putting Damien through school, he'd be like, hey, man, I got you this year. And if somebody came to me, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not about money. It's about the lack of experience that they are receiving in the lodges.
Yeah, but don't you have to care? Don't you have to have a little quarter cup of gas?
You do.
A little
I,
give a crap, right?
I,
You got to care.
I think somewhere in the middle lies the truth, right? I think
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle there is um I could see a officer line totally turning off a Mason and prevent him from or cause him to not show up for a year or two until that line has moved on. That's a real thing.
Because
You
this
guys
is
probably know
a
who I'm talking about.
yeah, and because this is a all volunteer organization,
It
right?
is.
Right. So I don't have to really care. I
No.
enjoy if I enjoy it, I'll come hang out. If I feel like I'm getting, my spirit fed from this, from the sense of brother, hanging out with my brothers, and the things that we're doing in the community. Yeah, I'm gonna be more apt to come around. And even to Raul's point, of why I think he asked the question, it's like, if we're not doing anything together, what are we, right? What are we? What do we do? Like,
Right.
tell me what, don't, without any bumper sticker, language, tell me what we do, right? That's the question. And I think a lot of people will have a hard time explaining what it is we do without, hey, making good men better, making, faith,
So
faith, hope,
cliche,
charity,
yeah.
without those, bumper sticker words, I think you'd be hard pressed to really find someone who can explain to you what it is that, they're a part of.
I would like to think that most guys can at least explain why they go, right? Maybe they can't speak on behalf of everybody in their lodge, but
Yeah.
I think that those reasons are so individualized,
Yeah.
right?
So here's what I challenge both of you to do. Next time you go to a lodge meeting, ask a random brother, what's your why?
Oh yeah.
See what they say. You'd be right, mind blown. They probably won't have an answer. They're gonna look at you like you're crazy.
Mm.
Mm,
They're gonna look at you
that
like you're
sounds
crazy.
like a good lodge education talk.
Because if your why, yeah, if you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. Right?
Yeah.
Dr. Eric Thomas always says that. And every time I
Yeah.
hear him say that, it just reaffirms what's your why.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing this? Like, we are doing it a lot of times today for the wrong reason. That
Yeah.
being Freemasonry, we were doing it for the wrong reasons.
And you mentioned a moment ago that you were at annual communication, and
Mhm.
I'm looking around, and there's 2,000 plus brothers there. They're there on a Friday, so they likely took Friday off. They
Right.
paid for their plane ticket, or they drove to San Francisco, which is
Eight
not fun,
hours.
Yeah.
right? They paid $300-400 for a hotel room,
Yeah.
right? They're paying for their meals. Like, these guys are not getting paid to do this. They're there because they really love it. That's what we call them, like the hardcores. Like, those are the hardcore guys that show up, that are
Right.
willing to do what? To to go listen to legislation
Yeah.
for for for
Yeah.
14 hours of legislation. You know what I mean? Like, is it really that exciting on a
Yeah.
Saturday, on a Friday, on a Saturday? But it just says a
Yeah.
lot about how much we do have guys that really love this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was just thinking, I was sitting back looking at the crowd. I'm just like, man, these guys aren't paid to be here. They're here because they love it,
Yeah.
because they really,
Mhm.
truly love it. Or they want to get a pin, or
So
something.
I'm gonna put us on the spot here. I'm gonna put us on the spot here. So, Justin, what's your why?
I got a lot of things. I'll be 100% honest with you. There's not a whole lot of Freemasonry that I don't like. I'll tell you what I don't like. Um, at times it feels like a service organization. And again, it's good to give back to people who need that. It's our responsibility.
Yeah.
But at times it felt a little bit overwhelming, to the point where that was the only thing we're doing. I enjoy the ritual. I think that there is profound power in delivering a piece of ritual that leaves an impact on someone else. So I take great pride in that. And I spend a lot of time on that. So I think I love the ritual. I love the history. You watch the last podcast, like, I enjoy the esoteric and really digging up and finding these nuggets of, like, just like having that aha moment. It happens all the time, you know. Um, you know, and I love the brothers.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't go to church as much as you guys do. I am religious, right? But I don't go as much as you guys. But when I leave lodge, there is a feeling and a buzz that I have when I leave. It is a time for me to focus on me. It's, I'm not thinking about, what I got going on at work. I'm not thinking about, what I got going on at home. It's a time for me to sit there and reflect. And I listen to the charges. I listen to everything that is being said. And I think a lot of guys don't, but I do. But thanks to Raul, I'll be 100%
Yeah.
honest with you. You have pointed out some things, and the the charges, that is a set of instructions that how we are supposed to be living our life. And I sit there and I listen to it and be like, dude, am I really doing this? Am I really following this? Like, am I on track? It's kind of a rudder adjustment for me. And it's a very therapeutic time. And I do leave mostly regenerated, except when lodge meetings go way too long, right? But I usually, and no matter how tired I am the next morning,
Yeah.
it was worth it. It's always worth it to me. And
Yeah.
it's a feeling, man. For
Yeah.
me, it is.
We missed that fellowship, man, after Lodge, man.
Yeah.
We miss you.
I'll be back next
That
month.
was our thing.
I'll be there next
Oh.
month. Don't worry about it.
Big bro,
Kick it out late.
what's your why?
It has always been from the day I was raised to that point on the square, the education, like it intrigued me. It was the education for me. Like I wanted to know more. And I still to this day want to learn more. And so it's always been the educational aspect. And I'm with Justin, the ritual, right? If you look at the ritual and if you study some works in the ritual, a lecture, and you deliver that, you know, succinctly, it leaves an effect. And that effect affects me in a good way. So when I see you brothers gleaned to whatever we can put out, as a collective or me as an individual, and somebody gets educated and I get educated, that's my why. It always has been. Like there's been dark days, but that why has been the light that's kept me in masonry, the education.
Yeah.
All right, Trey, go
Appreciate
ahead.
it. Yeah. Man,
Yeah,
I had
to think.
hey, yeah, right. I had plenty of time to think. That's why I teed it up that way. Teed it up that way. I mean, my why is similar to your gentleman's why, but it's a lot of bit different at the same time. I really enjoy watching people. I really enjoy learning from people. Learning, it kind of equated to like the elders in the church for me. Like you can glean a lot of wisdom, life knowledge, or life wisdom from your elders, right? And that's one thing that I really have learned to appreciate and to value, whether that be the educational piece from a ritual or biblical perspective, but really, those life lessons, whether it be, how to handle grief, how to handle, finances, how to handle, confrontations with others. I think it's a place that is foreign to us in society where we have a place that allows us to, one, feed our soul, but two, feed our minds with like-minded people. Because I often think about it, where would I have the chance, the opportunity to have conversations with gentlemen like like yourself, right? Like we get so caught up into the hustle and bustle of work, right? Having a social structure which is rooted in morality and values, is important to check yourself, right? To have something to check yourself against. From that perspective, that's one of my whys why I continue to engage. The second part of it would be really the brothers, man. I can't say that enough. Like just people, and being able to know that if I, come 1 o'clock, if I get in a pinch, it's that security knowing that I got a group of brothers that have my back, right? Because we're all interdependent in some way, shape, or form as a society. So it's really, it's good knowing that that God has placed people in your life or in my life that are there to help me if need be. And then my last why is I really enjoy the study. I really enjoy the conversations. I think it's important for my continued growth and development to continue to challenge myself and challenge my thought process. I don't think that we do it enough, right? We take things for what they are oftentimes, and sometimes they're not all the way right, you know. So I enjoy that. I enjoy having those conversations. So yeah, those are I guess my three whys. I think they were all kind of the same, but I think you get what I'm saying.
No, they're
No,
different.
yeah,
They're
100%.
they're your whys, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's you. That's who you are, right? I told a brother the other day on the, I said, hey, you can send me a note or whatever, and I said you can send it in crayon, and I said to be honest, I said you can write a love letter in crayon. And they were like, huh, I never thought about that. Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's your that's your love letter, whether it's in crayon, whether it's typed, whether you know what I mean. That's you. That's you. That's who you are.
Yeah.
That's your core. And but we talked a little bit about like how could we get brothers to come back? We got to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just
that's
kind of a
true.
good segue. That's your why or your three whys. Justin has his and I have mine. We got to meet brothers where they're at. Because if we know what make just think about it from we think about it from a business perspective. I wanted to say military because we use military a lot. Think about it from a business perspective. If I know where an employee's at, I know what makes them tick, and what drives them, and I use that for motivation, and they get motivated, they excel. Right? They're not going to stay where they're at. They're going to want to excel. We just hired a guy the other day. First question is, where do you want to go? We told him the different levels. Oh, I want to be there. Tech SME. He just got hired. He's only been in the company 3 days. He wants to be a tech
Mhm.
SME. Right now, I know where his mindset is, so now we can put him in positions to excel.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we got to meet brothers where they're at. We
Yeah.
stopped doing that. Like that is our issue. That's our Achilles heel right now.
We
Mm.
had one of our cables who will leave unnamed.
Uh,
You know, hasn't been around in a while, haven't seen him for a while. Gave him a call. This is a while ago. I think this is about 6 months ago. Gave him a call. And he said, "Hey Justin, you know what? Like, I'd love to come back, but I just feel like I forgot everything and I don't want to look stupid." You know, and that was kind of shocking to me. I was like, man, I was like,
but why does he feel like, you know what I'm saying? Just
right,
the fact that he even
this,
feels like that.
yeah, exactly. I was like, man, I was like, you're amongst friends, you're amongst brothers. Like, if you look foolish, we'll giggle, but we're gonna show you, right? We're gonna jog your memory. We'll show you what you need to do. Just show up, man.
Yeah.
Like just show up. I think it's like the gym, like you stay away from the gym too long. You're like, I don't want to go back because I'm gonna be sore, or maybe I forgot, or I just, the longer you get away from it, the harder it really is to
Yeah.
come back. And you're right. We gotta find a way
That
to get
first day
those
you're
guys back in the gym,
first
right?
day first day you're sore as hell, but then yeah, your body, muscle memory. But it's
Yeah,
just it's just concerning that the guy doesn't want to come back because it's what we were just talking about. What's the culture that's not making it inviting?
Mm.
That's a
clicks,
cultural thing, right?
clicks.
Again, well, you got those clicks. But if the brother's not doesn't feel wanted, right? Nobody wants to. The underline is okay. I may have forgot. I forgot everything. No, there's something deeper. What's beneath the surface, right? Because if you forget something, okay, if you're in a culture that's inclusive, you won't worry about it. So again, I think it's a cultural thing. I
It
don't think
Yeah.
it's
is.
so much lack of knowledge of, you know, most of the guys on your line are pretty sharp dudes. That's
Yeah,
just muscle memory. That's just
Yeah.
recall. You hear it a
yeah.
couple times, boom, it's gonna come back. But
Yeah.
what's the
S-
culture?
So I know we've been going for a while, but I want to open this up again a little bit and ask the
Mm.
question. So, all right, what do we think? What are some best practices? And Justin, I know you've seen it. I was privy to at least to hear some when I went to that Masters and Wardens retreat. What are some of these practices, best practices that we've seen that can help with the involvement and the engagement? At the we'll call it at the individual, at the lodge level.
I've seen a lot of really interesting stuff. And I'll be honest with you, a couple months ago, when I very first moved here, I went and visited a lodge and I was talking to them, and man, Lodge it was a smaller. I think they got 50 members, 75 members, something like that.
Yeah.
But dude, it was packed. They
Yeah.
had guys in the north, guys in the south. I'm like, what is going on tonight? You guys got a degree? Like, nope, just a business meeting. I'm like, what is like, this is just kind of how it is here.
Yeah.
And he mentioned, the lodge secretary mentioned that whenever a member can't make a stated meeting, they are required to write regrets to the lodge.
Huh.
So can you
Wow.
believe that, right? So it can be
That's
a
good
text,
though.
it could be
Yeah.
a text, it could be an email, right? And they read them. They read them.
Yeah.
So and so can't be there because Johnny has t-ball practice, right?
Yeah.
But like they make the members engage the lodge and let them know why they're not going to be there. It doesn't really matter what the reasoning is, but they make them write regrets. And that's something that they have done for decades, right? That's what that culture is. When you come into this lodge, like you are expected to be here. And if you cannot be here, we are expecting you to let us know why. And that's just kind of a thing that they do.
Yeah.
Um, on the lodge side, I'm a big fan of really recognizing guys in any way you get the opportunity to. So buying a stack of birthday cards, and maybe you just get some from Etsy that have the square and compass and G on it. And, you figure out when people's birthday are, master writes a letter, you mail that to them, and you randomly get, you haven't been to lodge in a while. Bam. Like you get a birthday card from the lodge, just letting you know,
Yeah.
like, hey man,
That's
like,
huge.
hope you're
Yeah.
well. Right.
Yeah.
It takes very minimal effort if you plan accordingly, right? If you're trying to do
Yeah.
them like month to month, like that can be a thing. But these are things that you can do in January, and all of
Yeah.
your cards are done for the whole year. Now it's just on your secretary to get them in the mail on time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Small things like that. So and so had a baby, like put some
Yeah.
stuff together for them. Send a card, send some flowers. If you have an older brother, go visit him. He can't get around, like go knock on his door. We have a lot of my new lodge. We have a lot of older brethren, so that's a big one. Just getting out there and just like Roll said, meeting them where they're at. You can't make it to lodge because we don't really have a quote unquote ADA accessible lodge. Like there's steps, there's a big thing, and I know in California, y'all's lodge is the same way. Like it's not that accessible.
Yeah.
Find those guys, but the little things count, and in a way, you kind of, I don't want to use the word guilt, but you're letting them know that like, hey, you're thinking of them in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. And it gets them thinking like, you know what, maybe I should go to lodge, man.
It leaves an impression. It does leave an impression.
Small stuff makes a huge difference. The small things matter. But when you just let a dude just rot in Grandview on your roster and you never reach out to him,
Yeah.
guys can get disgruntled real quick.
Bro, what have you seen, Raul? What have you seen?
Same thing. I was about to say I visited an older brother in our jurisdiction, and I've been so busy. It's been months, and I really feel like crap when I go in and visit him. But the last time I was able to sit down with him, the one thing he says is, "You're the only one that comes over here." Besides another brother that left and went to Arkansas. But when somebody tells you that, man, you feel like crap.
It hurts.
Like you're like, damn. Like,
we suck.
Yeah, we are horrible, right? And he said the only time people contact him is when it's time for dues.
Yep. Pay me my money.
And so we're failing. Right? I don't there's no way to sugarcoat it. We're failing at that.
Yeah.
Like it's so simple. I don't even like picking up the phone is one thing, right? But it means even more if we show up at that older brother's house. Right?
Yeah.
Let's say this brother's been fit in the fraternity 50, 60 years. And we pull up on him at his house. Just have a conversation with him. Like you talked about earlier, talking about getting that knowledge, sitting around. Man, these guys know so much stuff.
They do.
They forgot more than we'll ever know.
Yeah.
In most cases, guys in his 80s, but he's still sharp, right? And still lucid, and he'll talk about some stuff. You're like, damn, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where that came from.
Yeah.
It's painful when we spend so much time on these elaborate fundraising things. And a lot of work goes into it and a lot of thought goes into it and a lot of planning goes into it. And we
Mhm.
are able to do these great things, right? Either for the lodge or for the community. We're able to do these great things, but we can't do the super basic things of just reaching out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah. It's
So
it
little
sucks.
stuff. Yeah.
So one thing that I've just seen, and you know, I've tried to kind of like bring some of the things that I think makes sense from an organizational, you know, just having experience at, you know, running an organization and running not necessarily an organization, let's call it a platoon, you know, of
Sure.
individuals or a section of individual that does a particular practice of maintenance and operations, you know. So what I think is that, and Justin, you alluded to it, right? In the beginning of the year, like you're putting forth the effort in laying it down, right? I.e. the trestle board, right?
Yeah.
You're laying out the plan, and I think, and I fully believe this, and maybe I'm, you know, naive to believe this because I haven't been around the organization long enough. But I do know people, is that when you lay out a plan, a solid plan that, you know, encompasses these things, you're laying out your intent, and hey, we are going to, you know, we're going to execute, you know, 3 home visits, you know, a quarter, right? Or one a quarter, you know, as a group. And this is the day we do it. And then we put it, you know, on calendar, and you put it into action, and you say, hey, we will meet once a quarter on this date. And you lay it all out in the beginning of the year. Nothing is a surprise. And I'm curious to think how, example, when we went over to, you know, insert lodge name, and, you know, we went there, and you know it was a whole thing, man. And then you look at their calendar, you're like, oh man, this is pretty neat. You know how they're able to communicate, and what it allowed them to do is that transparency and communication. It allowed brothers to be able to pick up where others couldn't be at that particular time, and it didn't matter. And
Right.
those brothers just had a sense of like, hey, we're just here. We're all doing this thing. We're all running and running this joint because when it's time to go do a third degree, we're all showing up here, you know. And I think that it's important, and I don't know this, and that's why I say I think, and maybe Raul, you can speak to this, what you've seen. I think it's really important to lay down that plan at the beginning of the year, right? And
No, it
to at
is.
least give your vision of what that year, you know, you expect to do in that year, right? And then that is at least the starting point, because even me in my position, I've been there a couple years now, and I'm still like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll do it because I think this is what you know, I should be doing, or because, you know, God has put it in my heart to do this particular thing. I'm going to do it, but I'm not connected to individuals who've been in that lodge for, you know, years upon years. And I think putting individuals in positions like that isn't necessarily the best representation of what it is that, you know, we could be doing. Um, let's put together a calendar, right? You know me, I'll send out all these calendar invites. I was like, dude, we need to have a centralized place where we can collaborate that removes the white noise. It's all business, and it's just laying the foundation. How hard is it for us to get out and go bowling, right? And throw out an invite and go bowling. You know what I
It's
mean?
not, man. It is, but again, even now, having taken over this Grand Commandery,
Mm-hmm.
I'll have my trust board out next week. But there's gonna be things in there like awesome meetings. But just the meetings are just the meetings, right? A meeting for the meeting for the meeting. But what I am gonna
Mm-hmm.
do when we actually get the session is actually uh, have a private lunch with just the officers,
Yep.
Yeah.
right? And us just sit down and have stratagem, right? We go over just stratagem. Like, okay, we're here. It's now been 365 days since we've been in office. And now obviously we're going to meet before then, but we're so spaced out.
Yeah.
I just want to know their thoughts. Like open Kabono, right? No formality, no agenda. What do you think? We're eating. Let's just eat, have a
Yeah.
beer. What are your thoughts? Like what, the organization has this amount of money. What should we invest in? How should we implement
Yeah.
These are the conversations that I'm gonna have with the officers. And the first thing I did was the Grand Commander didn't have district deputy. I right away appointed district deputies because I needed executing agents. So I came into it with a forethought that we needed change.
Yeah.
So it's a task.
Yeah.
How do you get buy-in? I think Trey, like, I think I think that's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
I think lodges year to year are used to a certain rhythm of things happening. And when you start introducing new things or new ideas, guys are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, our calendar's packed already. Like, you can't be adding things on here. And I think that's where the real challenge is at, right?
Yeah.
Is getting others to understand the importance of these things is where the real challenge lies. You
Yeah.
mentioned like putting things on calendar, like, yeah, that's simple to do, but getting others to buy into what you're trying to do and what your theme is for the year is the
Yeah.
challenge,
the number
Yeah.
one thing is trust. Like they have to trust you. If they don't
Right.
trust you, it's not gonna work. So you got to build trust before you can do anything. You can have stratagem all day, but Peter Drucker continues to tell us from the 70s to now, 60s to now, culture is strategy for breakfast. You can strategize all day. I can have this elaborate calendar and
Mm-hmm.
color coded and all this stuff, but if nobody trusts you,
Yeah.
it won't matter.
No, you're right.
And
And
credibility too. I think it's a credibility thing too.
It,
yeah.
it is, but you got to earn that. That's earned, not
Yeah,
given.
that takes time.
It does take time. You got to build that up.
So what we're saying is these cultural changes take time.
They do. They absolutely do. Like culture is not something that manifests overnight. It's like gardening.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be patient to be a gardener. Because if you, for example, if you know one of the older brothers in our lodge, and he shall remain nameless, he talks about gardening all the time. But that
Mm-hmm.
gardening took years. These tomatoes and these different fruits and veggies they didn't just pop up overnight.
Yeah.
Right? He constantly works at it, little by little by little by little. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
To build that culture, shit, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You need like a core of a couple guys to help with help with it too.
You do.
I
You do.
I don't think you need everybody, but I think you need to have at least the top 3 seats on the same sheet of music as far as what the lodge's priorities are.
Yeah, but isn't
Uh,
isn't that just communication though that we don't we overlook that. Like
Yeah.
that's comms 101. Like trust and communication. Those two things in masonry we lost.
yeah,
Why don't we trust and why don't we communicate?
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
Because that's those things are pivotal. These and it sounds so simple, right? Why
Yeah.
it's simple, but it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh man, that strikes a chord. Strikes a
Yeah.
chord because I like, man, look, I don't understand why we just can't like just say what it is. Everything's got to be so
Political.
Veiled.
well, no, cryptic. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
cryptic. Like what are you talking about? Like I don't
Yeah.
well, this is yeah, it's like that. Yeah, it's culture, right? It's culture. You takes a long time to do that. But that's how you also lose a lot of people, right? When
Yeah.
that culture is unwilling to move or to do things differently. And I'm not saying that is the case at all, from my perspective or from my lodge in particular. But I just think about just any organization I've been a part of, like how just disheartening it is when you've lived something and you've experienced something because everything happens cycles within cycles, right? Like sometimes
Yeah.
it's time to run that last cycle back, like let's try to re-energize, this thing that we're trying to do, whether that be the education piece, whether that be getting together. I think we know what we do and where we stand in the community. But yeah, it's important. And I wonder how many other lodges or individuals have these kind of conversations within the confines of within their lodge, man.
Yeah.
Because
I don't
I've
think I
gleaned a
don't think a
lot from
lot of
this.
I don't think a lot of them are.
Yeah.
And I think that Trey is just something that you and I can use this platform and then push it into our specific lodge and
Yeah.
like really have this conversation.
Yeah.
Oh man. So the lodge that I just recently affiliated with, when I walked in on day one, I was like, "Hey guys, so how do you guys communicate?" You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's my big, you guys already know that's my big thing. Like, how do you
Yeah.
guys stay in touch? They're like, "Oh, we email." I just looked at him like I'm like, "You guys communicate via email?" I was like, "You guys don't have a group chat or anything?" Like, no, we email.
Yeah.
And they email. And they all go straight to my junk folder in my email because it comes from like a distribution list.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, we
Yeah.
got to do better. And they're like, well, we'll see what the incoming master wants to do. And I've been like, dude, we have to get something other than email. Come, come
Yeah.
on.
You know what?
Kind of rural.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would actually, the simplicity in things is also good, because I'm just curious now, like, so do they have a good schedule, schedule for their events? Right?
They have a great calendar.
Yeah, so
They're very good at they have their bread and butter
yeah,
things like our lodge did, that they have their things that they do
yeah,
very frequently. They don't deviate from that a whole lot.
yeah,
Um, it's very similar. I'll just say that. It's
yeah,
very similar to our lodge in that way. Uh, communication's a little bit different. But the brothers are similar. Just good
yeah,
dudes, good straight up guys I like hanging out with. The work ethic is definitely there. Like guys are
yeah,
definitely there to work. Um, we have a very healthy officers line of guys, younger guys in their 30s and 40s that are very eager.
yeah,
So they're definitely moving in the right direction. They need to, they got a good website. They do the social media pretty well, from my observation.
yeah,
Internal communication, man, I would like to see a little bit more, but overall a really solid
yeah.
lodge, and I'm pretty happy.
But what organization couldn't improve communication?
All of them
You
can.
know what I mean?
I feel like we should
Yeah,
be. I mean,
yeah,
I feel
you
like
know,
as a Mason
this is everyone.
In a Masonic lodge, we should be in a constant state of improvement, right?
Yeah,
Like we should be constantly trying to improve our product. We should be constantly trying to improve how we're doing it. I absolutely hate the this is how it's always been,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
unfortunately we hear that all so often. And I don't personally like that. I just think
yeah,
I think it's kind of a cop out.
that's fair.
That's you and your inability to change or entertain new ideas.
Where you gotta want it, yeah, you gotta want that. You gotta want to change.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a complete 1000% cop out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the way we've always done it. Well, has anybody checked to see if the way you've always done it is wrong?
Yeah.
Mm. Nah, we're just gonna keep doing it this way.
And
Again,
speaking of
keep rolling.
culture,
Yeah,
Keep rolling.
getting back to culture, the organization that I work for, like it's very innovative. Like
yeah,
they know that things are new and that they're kind of cutting edge for masonry, and they really do give you the time and space to be like, hey, I don't have the answer to this problem, like figure out a way and document it.
yeah,
That's the most important part, right? Like if you're going to change something, document how you did it so that we have a set of procedures to kind of follow. But
yeah,
you really get a lot of time and space to think outside the box and solve problems, and it's fun. No one just wants to be a cog in a machine that rinses and repeats every day.
yeah,
It gives you a little bit of time and space to think through things. So that
yeah,
is
But
cool.
but
Uh,
it is always nice to have that. It really is because when you have that and you feel welcome, when you feel wanted in an organization, it does make a hell of a difference.
oh yeah. And that
When
you're
you
important.
yeah, yeah. But if you don't feel like you're valued, and we talked about earlier about me brothers are at not making them feel wanted or included, that's a bad thing. That's a
Yeah.
bad look, man.
yeah,
So
It could be a letter, man. It could be a birthday card. It could be a Masonic anniversary card, like whatever.
Yeah,
I
it's
I think it makes
it's
a big
sad.
difference, and that's something I'm definitely going to implement. Like everybody, if I ever get there and I'm in the position to make that call, everybody in the lodge is going to get a birthday card. It may be the only one they get, but happy
Yeah,
birthday,
right.
buddy.
Yeah, and that may be
Yeah.
something that, you know, on the Grand Commander side because we have such few members, right? The one key is membership, and the other thing is technology. And so with the membership, I take 150 certain nights and send them a birthday card. That's not
Dude,
hard.
it's huge.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Especially
Yeah,
coming from you, like,
yeah. No,
man,
I write this shit myself.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
wouldn't.
guys
I
will put
can't.
it in a frame.
Yeah, yeah,
Remember when the Grand Commander sent me a birthday card? It's so cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
those guys are
yeah.
all about it. Man, I
Yeah.
might pay my dues this year. I was thinking about not doing it, but you know what? I'm going to do it now.
Yeah, but then they'll talk about what their experience, and then their experience is going to be a recruiting tool, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
because it's genuine, it'll be like, no, that's who I really
It's
am.
personalized.
Yeah,
And
oh yeah,
that's one of the things, at least I liked about the Holy Royal Arch and the Royal Select too. It's like as you start to go through those, it just you see the same guys, but it just
Yeah.
keeps it gets smaller and smaller, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that at least seeing what I've seen thus far on that side, um, those smaller, intimate groups of individual activities that are happening, whether that be the hookah night or, the York Rite balls, and it's really that's exciting.
yeah,
That's what I like.
yeah, we've done a good job at that on that side. Like we
Yeah,
we have done quite a few just hookah nights, hookah guy
yeah,
nights, right? We just go out and just sit around, you know, smoke hookah and have a
Shoot the
beer,
breeze.
and
yeah,
that's it, man. And it's helped.
yeah.
It really has helped us. Like I think people don't even see how big that is. But then in the other organizations and the our symbolic lodge, for whatever reason, it's tough. It's like
Mhm.
pulling teeth. I don't. It's the same people.
Yeah, it is.
I don't understand. I'm like,
Yeah,
what the hell? It's the same
It's kind of
people.
one of those things where you may not really, really, really want to go, but after you went, you always
Yeah,
feel like, man, I'm
yeah.
really glad I did that.
that's right.
You
But
know what I
Kelly,
mean?
I think to some point, at least as I look at, the southern jurisdiction down here, like at least for us, guys are all over the place. It's not an easy, hop and a skip, down there. Even from where I'm at, right, down the
Yeah.
Oceanside, it's not, I mean, it's a 45-minute drive, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. One
And
way.
for those guys in the IE, hey,
Yeah.
it's so I think that along with that, we have to examine, locality of these things, how we do it, frequency clearly, but just, taking
Yeah,
all things in
but
consideration.
you know what I did too? So I'm in another organization, and the organization happens to have people from IE and
Hmm.
up north, right? And the one thing I did when I came in, the first thing I did is we're going to do things up north.
Hmm.
Everybody looked at me like, what the hell is he talking about? No, we're going to do things up north. Everybody from down south will go up north. And it started off small group, and then it got bigger. And then
Hmm.
now it became a norm. Like that
Yep.
was the expectation. And then so when we were going up north, the brothers were more receptive and they'd come down south. And
Yeah.
we just flip-flop back and forth. And then sometimes we just meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Hey Trey, do
Yeah.
you remember when we very first got raised, I think it was only you, me, and one other guy. We would go out and have a beer afterwards and eat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you fast forward a year, there'd be more guys. You
Yeah.
fast forward a year, there's even more guys.
Yeah.
So
It's phenomenal, man.
hey, you just keep inviting them out. Hey
Yeah.
man, you want to come out? No, I'm good. They'll come out eventually. And
Yeah.
then
Eventually,
there's
yeah.
been times where we've had to get 3 or 4 tables.
Yeah. You're
There's
right.
20 guys there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Become
it
the norm.
it was kind of a subliminal thing,
Yeah.
like, hey, like you should probably come hang out. And
Yeah.
guys finally did, and they're finally like, you know what? This doesn't take too much of my time. This is worth
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This is worth
Five,
it.
10 minutes just to
You
relax,
just
shoot the breeze real quick,
you just have to
maybe
be
grab something to
persistent.
eat. Yeah.
It's
Grab
all
something
about
to
being
eat
persistent.
and then take off.
Just
Uh,
stay on them. Just
you're
stay
absolutely,
consistent.
Oh
absolutely
man.
right.
Yeah, so Dude, this was kind of one of our more mild conversations because I
Mhm.
know we've been a little, hot blooded, but I think the next one, if we can, I think we're having a guest, the next one, if I'm not mistaken, we can lock that
Yes.
down. That'll be a really good conversation to have. I'm looking forward to that. But as always, man, as we wrap this up, I definitely appreciate you too and what you guys do to give me that energy because sometimes, man, tanks are low, right?
Yeah.
We're just
Especially on a Friday night.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Real low, super
Yeah,
low.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up with the our YouTube audience, man. So give you guys a piece and
Appreciate you guys.
yep, man, and go ahead and